The year was 2157, 40 years after first contact. Humanity had been forever changed. The discovery of the All-Ari colony ship drifting near Jupiter's orbit launched Earth into an unprecedented era of technological and social advancement. Within a decade, humans had access to faster-than-light travel, anti-gravity technology, and membership in the Galactic Coalition, a loose federation of spacefaring races. In a sleek Seattle apartment, Leo Carter sat in his home office, staring at his holographic display. The cursor blinked mockingly as he struggled to write a childcare advertisement that didn't reek of desperation. Outside, Seattle's skyline was a reflection of the new era. Alien crystalline spires jutted among traditional buildings, their surfaces glowing softly with bioluminescent algae imported from the Proxima system. Anti-gravity vehicles glided silently through the air in orderly lanes, a constant hum of technological progress. Leo's mind drifted to 6 years ago, when he had first met Kira. He had been a fresh graduate working on the Earth-All-Ari Cultural Exchange Project, designing hybrid living spaces for both species. Kira, an All-Ari architectural consultant, had stood out with her analytical mind and blue skin, even among her own kind. Their shared love for solving complex engineering challenges had brought them together. During a crisis that threatened to collapse a residential complex's environmental systems, they worked tirelessly for 3 nights, fueled by coffee for him and processed starlight for her. Somewhere between calculations and exhaustion, they fell in love. Their wedding 2 years later made headlines as one of the first human-All-Ari unions sanctioned by both governments. Progressive members of the coalition celebrated the union as a symbol of integration, though conservative factions on both sides were less enthusiastic. Daddy, the replicators making weird noises again. Leo was jolted from his memories. His 4-year-old daughter, stood in the kitchen pointing at the malfunctioning food replicator. Her shimmering blue skin, inherited from Kira, reflected the photometric lights above. "It won't make my pancakes right," she pouted. "Mrs. Thompson always fixes it." "Mrs. Thompson isn't." Leo stopped himself, forcing a smile. Mrs. Thompson, the elderly quantum physicist next door, had been a godsend in helping watch you. But her recent acceptance of a Mars research position left Leo scrambling for childcare options. "How about cereal instead?" he suggested. "I want pancakes." Ya's lip trembled. "Like Mommy used to make." Leo's chest tightened. Kira had loved cooking Earth food the traditional way, calling it practical chemistry and turning every meal into a science lesson for you. His communicator chimed. A holographic projection of his boss appeared above his wrist. "Carter, where's the proposal for the X-372 project? The Centaurian delegates are waiting." Leo glanced at the smoking replicator, his distraught daughter, and the unfinished childcare ad. 10 minutes, he said before the projection disappeared. Leo sighed and crouched to Ya's level. "Cereal now, pancakes later. Deal?" "Okay," she mumbled, climbing onto a stool. As they ate, Leo's mind churned. After somehow submitting his project and hastily posting a childcare ad, he slumped into his chair. The holographic display shimmered with his message. Single father seeks experienced childcare provider for a 4-year-old half-All-Ari girl. Engineering background preferred. Must be comfortable with modern tech and diverse species. Immediate start. Location: Seattle Tech District, Earth. He hit send, hoping the quantum AI-powered application system would screen candidates quickly. Minutes later, his sister Madison called from Mars. "Have you found someone yet?" she asked, her expression softening as she saw the exhaustion in his face. "No," Leo admitted. "I just posted the ad." "You can't keep doing this, Leo," she said. "You're going to burn out." "I'm handling it," he replied. Madison sighed. "You could move closer to us. Mars Colony has excellent hybrid childcare programs." "We're not leaving Earth," Leo said firmly. The accident that took Kira had happened during a routine shuttle flight to a conference on Luna. Since then, he'd developed a fear of space travel. You need stability. This is her home, he added. Madison gave him a sad smile. Just think about it. The replicator sparked again, prompting Ya to giggle. Her joy reminded Leo of Kira and the promise he had made to keep their daughter safe. Moments later, his communicator pinged with an alert about a job application. Curious, Leo opened the file. The candidate's name was Nara, an amorous woman with iridescent violet skin and penetrating purple eyes. Her qualifications were impeccable. Degrees in xenopediatrics and quantum engineering, extensive experience with hybrid children, and security clearances deeper than he expected for a childcare provider. Pretty, Ya exclaimed, staring at Nara's image. Leo hesitated, his instincts conflicted. But when a message from Nara appeared, he decided to meet her. Leo and Ya arrived at the Galactic Exchange Center in downtown Seattle, its crystalline architecture glittering in the sunlight. The center was a hub of interspecies activity, and its bustling atrium was filled with representatives from dozens of alien races. Translator modules hummed softly, layering overlapping voices into a strange, harmonious backdrop. Remember what we talked about? Leo said, helping Ya out of their transport pod. Best behavior. I know, Daddy. I'll be as proper as a Centaurian diplomat, she said, mimicking the stiff posture of the insectoid species. Her impression was spot on, and Leo couldn't help but smile despite his nerves. In the cafe, they spotted Nara immediately. She stood near a quiet corner, her violet skin shimmering faintly under the atrium's lights. Up close, the patterns beneath her skin shifted like liquid light, giving her an otherworldly presence. You must be Nara said, kneeling to the girl's level. Her voice carried a lilting musical quality that even the translator couldn't flatten. I love your dress. The quantum particle pattern is very sophisticated. Ya beamed. Mommy designed it. The patterns match real quantum equations. Nara's expression softened with genuine admiration. This swirl here represents particle entanglement. Very clever. Leo was surprised. Most people didn't recognize the scientific patterns in Kira's designs. You know quantum physics? It was part of my studies, Nara said, standing gracefully. Understanding the fundamental forces helps us understand minds. They're more connected than people realize. They sat at a table in the cafe. Nara positioned herself so she could keep an eye on you while still maintaining comfortable eye contact with Leo. Her calm, deliberate movements put him at ease, despite his lingering doubts. Your qualifications are impressive, Leo began, folding his hands on the table. But I have to ask, why apply for a childcare position? Surely, someone with your background has more challenging opportunities. Nara's skin rippled faintly, an amorous expression Leo couldn't interpret. Would you believe me if I said helping hybrid children navigate their dual heritage is one of the most challenging and rewarding tasks possible? I might, Leo said cautiously. If you explain why. Nara turned to Ya, who was fidgeting with her drink's temperature controls. Ya, can you tell me what you're feeling right now? Ya blinked, startled. Excited. And scared. And something else, like when I try to use gravity, but it doesn't work right. That's anxiety, Nara explained gently. It happens when we want something but worry about it at the same time. Your All-Ari heritage gives you a stronger connection to the quantum field, so your emotions can feel more physical like gravity. Leo stared, dumbfounded. He'd never been able to help you articulate her feelings so clearly. How did you? Amorous are natural empaths, Nara said. We don't just sense emotions, we understand their patterns. Hybrid children like you experience the world in unique ways. They need someone who can help them navigate those experiences. As if to prove the point, Ya's drink changed color, reflecting her emotional state. She gasped in delight. Can you do that too? Not quite the same way, Nara said with a smile. But I can teach you how to control it better. Leo watched their interaction, his skepticism fading. Nara had an innate understanding of his daughter's needs. But just as he started to relax, he asked the question he'd been dreading. "Did you know my mommy? You talk about quantum stuff like she did." The cafe seemed to go silent. Leo opened his mouth to redirect the conversation, but Nara spoke first. "I didn't have the honor of meeting your mother," she said gently, "but I've studied her work on hybrid architecture. She was brilliant at bringing different worlds together, wasn't she?" Yun nodded, her lower lip trembling. "I miss her. Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like, and it makes my chest hurt." Leo reached for his daughter, but Nara was already pulling a small holographic projector from her bag. With a few gestures, she created a swirling pattern of light above the table. "See these colors?" Nara asked. "Each one represents a feeling. Missing someone creates patterns like this. It might hurt, but it's also beautiful. Would you like to make your own pattern?" Ya's face shifted from sadness to concentration as she manipulated the light patterns. Leo watched, astonished, as his daughter's emotions transformed into something tangible, something she could understand and shape. "It's like painting with feelings," Ya whispered, adding a streak of blue to the display. "Exactly," Nara said. "Every time you miss your mom, you can create something new. The hurt doesn't go away, but it becomes part of something beautiful." Leo felt his throat tighten. Nara wasn't just good with children. She understood grief, loss, and the delicate process of healing. When they returned home, Nara's application floated on Leo's holographic display. He tugged on his sleeve. "Can she be my new babysitter, Daddy? Please." Leo looked at his daughter, then at Nara's image. The amorous woman had a calm confidence that suggested she could help them both in ways he hadn't even realized they needed. "When can you start?" He typed, his decision made. Nara's response came almost instantly. "How about tomorrow?" The next morning, Nara arrived promptly at Leo's apartment, carrying a sleek bag that matched her violet skin's iridescent sheen. He ran to the door to greet her, her excitement palpable. "You're here?" Ya exclaimed, grabbing Nara's hand and pulling her inside. "I want to show you my quantum art." Nara smiled, letting the eager 4-year-old drag her toward the living room. "I can't wait to see it." Leo followed behind, arms crossed, still not entirely sure what he had gotten himself into. "Let me know if you need anything," he said as he watched Nara settle on the floor beside Ya. "I've got this," Nara replied with quiet confidence. Leo tried to focus on his work in his home office, but the sound of laughter and the soft hum of Nara's soothing voice kept drawing his attention. He glanced over to find them engrossed in a holographic projection, manipulating light patterns with surprising synchronization. "She's already making progress," Nara said, looking up and catching Leo watching. Her violet eyes were filled with a mix of pride and calm assurance. Ya's control over her quantum patterns is exceptional for her age. "It's natural." Leo felt his chest tighten. He wanted to say it wasn't just her talent, it was Kira's legacy. But instead he nodded and muttered, "That's good to hear." Over the next few days, Nara became an integral part of their lives. She had a way of seamlessly blending into their routine, her empathic abilities allowing her to anticipate Ya's needs before they were even voiced. At breakfast one morning, Nara helped Ya balance the quantum energy in her cereal bowl, turning it into a game of precision. "See? If you let the energy flow naturally, it won't spill," Nara explained, her skin glowing faintly. Ya giggled, her blue skin shimmering in delight. "Like gravity control." "Exactly," Nara said. Leo watched from across the table, sipping his coffee. "You seem to have a knack for this," he said, his tone light but his gaze thoughtful. "I had good teachers," Nara replied. Her smile held layers he couldn't quite decipher. A week later, Leo's communicator chimed with an urgent message. His boss's hologram appeared above his wrist display. "Carter, we need you at the office. Now." Leo frowned. "I'm in the middle of something. Can't it wait?" "It can't. Bring your old security clearances, the ones from the Cultural Exchange Project. We've reopened Labis." Leo's heart sank. Lab S was where he and Kira had done their most groundbreaking work. It had been sealed after her death, deemed too sensitive to continue without her. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Leo said, his voice tight. He turned to Nara, who was helping you assemble a complex quantum puzzle. "I need to go to the office," he said. Nara stood immediately, her skin rippling with concern. "Is everything all right?" "I'm not sure," Leo admitted. "You go," Nara said, her voice calm but firm. "We'll be fine here." She crouched to Ya's level. "Let's finish this puzzle, okay? Then we can practice your levitation skills." Ya nodded, completely unfazed. Leo hesitated, feeling a pang of guilt as he watched them. "Thanks," he said, grabbing his coat. "Be careful," Nara said softly. At Stellar Corp's headquarters, Leo's old security clearances were reactivated. He was directed to Lab S, where his boss, Director Matthews, stood waiting. The lab looked just as Leo remembered it. Equations scrawled across holographic displays, half-finished prototypes gathering dust. "What's going on?" Leo asked, his voice wary. Matthews gestured to a holographic console. "We detected an unauthorized attempt to access Kira's personal tablet." Leo froze. "That's impossible. Her devices were locked down after the accident." "Apparently, not all of them," Matthews said grimly. "What's more troubling is what happened when the attempt was made. The tablet's quantum encryption triggered a fail-safe we didn't know existed. It started broadcasting data packets on frequencies we've never encountered." Leo's mind raced. "What kind of data?" "We don't know yet," Matthews admitted. "But the access attempt originated from your home network." Leo's blood ran cold. "That's impossible," he said, though doubt crept into his voice. "Is it?" Matthews gave him a hard look. "You've recently hired a new child care provider, haven't you?" "An amorous?" Leo's stomach tightened. "She's been vetted. Her references are impeccable." "Too impeccable," Matthews said. "I don't trust coincidences, Carter. Keep an eye on her." Leo left the lab, his thoughts in turmoil. As he reached the transport bay, his communicator buzzed. It was a message from Nara. "Don't focus on the tablet. There's more going on here than you realize." Leo stared at the message, his heart pounding. How did she know about the tablet? And what did she mean? When he arrived home, Nara was waiting for him, her expression calm but guarded. "We need to talk," Leo said. "I know," Nara replied, her skin rippling faintly. Leo closed the door behind him, taking a deep breath. He was in her room, the sound of her holographic learning program faintly audible in the background. "How did you know about the tablet?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Nara met his gaze, her violet eyes calm yet intense. "Because I've been waiting for it to activate." Leo's heart skipped a beat. "Waiting? What does that mean?" Nara sighed, her skin flickering with a mix of emotions. "I didn't apply for this job by chance, Leo. Kira hired me 3 years ago, before her death. She knew something was coming, and she asked me to protect you and ya." Leo stared at her, his mind reeling. "Kira hired you? She never told me." "She couldn't," Nara interrupted gently. "She didn't want to put you or ya in more danger. She was working on something that scared her. When she realized how far Stellar Corp was willing to go, she reached out to my people for help." Leo felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. "What was she working on?" Nara hesitated. "Do you remember the gravitational harmonics project you were developing together?" "Of course," Leo said. "It was supposed to stabilize interstellar travel, but after her death, the project was shelved." "Kira discovered something buried in the quantum field equations," Nara said. "Something that could be weaponized. Stellar Corp wasn't interested in stabilization. They wanted control. Specifically, control over quantum consciousness fields." Leo froze. "You're talking about mind control?" "Not in the traditional sense," Nara said. "It's more insidious than that. Small nudges, subtle shifts in perception. Enough to manipulate an entire species without them realizing it. Leo's stomach churned. And Kira was trying to stop them? Yes, Nara said. She built a failsafe, a way to expose the truth if anything happened to her. That's what the tablet is. But Stellar Corp knows it exists, and they'll stop at nothing to get it. Leo felt a wave of anger rise in his chest. So you're saying my wife was killed because of this? The shuttle accident was no accident, Nara said softly. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging between them. Leo ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. And you've known this whole time? Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't safe, Nara said. Until the tablet activated, I couldn't risk revealing anything. But now that it's broadcasting, we're out of time. They'll come for you. For ya? A faint hum filled the room, a sound Leo recognized all too well. The building's quantum shielding had just detected incoming threats. They're here, Nara said, her skin darkening into battle-ready patterns. Leo's communicator buzzed. It was a message from Matthews. Stand down and cooperate. This isn't your fight. Leo clenched his fists. Like hell it isn't. Nara stepped closer, her expression fierce yet calm. Leo, I can handle them, but you need to trust me. Get ya and get to the safe room. No matter what happens. Don't open the door until I say it's safe. Wait, Leo said, grabbing her arm. What about you? Nara's skin shimmered with determination. I'll buy you time. Protect ya. That's what matters. No, Leo said, his voice firm. We do this together. Nara hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but you stay close, and you follow my lead. In the living room, you was already standing by the entrance to the safe room, her eyes wide but unafraid. Daddy, is it bad people? It's okay, sweetheart, Leo said, crouching to her level. You're going to stay in the safe room, just like we practiced. Nara and I will handle the rest. You nodded, her small hands glowing faintly with residual quantum energy. Be careful, Daddy. And Nara, too. Nara knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. You're so brave, yeah. Just like your mom. We'll be fine. As the door to the safe room sealed shut, the front of the apartment exploded inward. Security drones swarmed in, followed by armed agents in sleek, black combat suits. Nara moved first, her violet skin erupting with sharp, aggressive patterns. She raised her hands, and the air around her rippled with quantum energy. The first wave of drones faltered, their processors overwhelmed by the sudden flood of emotional resonance. Leo ducked behind the counter, activating his neural interface to synchronize with the apartment's defense systems. I've locked the doors and scrambled the perimeter sensors, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Good, Nara said, her voice calm but edged with steel. Now disrupt their quantum stabilizers. That'll buy us time. Leo tapped into the system, sending a targeted pulse toward the drones. They shuddered, their movements becoming erratic. The agents hesitated, clearly unprepared for Nara's abilities. But then a new figure stepped through the debris, a tall, amorous male, his dark purple skin marked with angular patterns of authority. Commander Vex, Nara said, her voice laced with tension. Hello, little sister, Vex replied, his voice smooth and cold. Leo's head snapped toward her. Sister, it's a long story, Nara muttered. Vex spread his arms, his patterns shifting ominously. Still running, I see. And now you've dragged these humans into your mess. How predictable. Nara's stance shifted, her patterns becoming sharper. You're on the wrong side of this, Vex. There are no sides, Vex said. Only power. And you wasted yours playing nanny. Nara's response was a sudden surge of quantum energy that sent Vex staggering. Leo, she said, her voice urgent. Keep working on those drones. I'll handle him. As Leo reconnected with the defense systems, he couldn't help but glance at Nara. She stood between him and danger, her entire being glowing with raw power. And for the first time, Leo realized he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for her, for them. Leo's hands flew across his neural interface controls, overriding the defense systems to target the incoming drones. Sparks flew as the drone stabilizers overloaded, causing several to crash to the ground. Meanwhile, Nara squared off against Vex, her violet skin glowing in jagged patterns that mirrored her rising determination. Vex's own patterns shifted, signaling a counterattack. The air between them seemed to thrum with quantum energy, visible ripples cascading as their abilities clashed. "You've always underestimated me, Vex," Nara said, her voice calm yet cutting. "You think power is about control. It's not. It's about connection." Vex sneered, raising his hand. The quantum field around him coalesced into a sharp, oppressive force aimed directly at Nara. She absorbed the blow, staggering slightly, but holding her ground. "You've let them weaken you," Vex spat. "These humans, their primitive emotions, they've made you soft." Nara's patterns flared brighter, her stance solid. "No, they've made me stronger. You'll never understand what it means to fight for something greater than yourself." Leo emerged from behind the counter, a small quantum pulse emitter in hand. "She's not fighting alone." Vex's gaze flicked to Leo, his lips curling into a mocking grin. "Ah, the grieving husband. Do you think your gadgets can save you? You're playing in a game you barely understand." "Maybe," Leo said, leveling the emitter. "But I know enough to fry your stabilizers." He fired. The pulse hit Vex square in the chest, disrupting his quantum patterns. Vex staggered, his glow dimming momentarily. Nara seized the opportunity. With a fluid motion, she reached out, sending a wave of pure quantum energy crashing into him. The force slammed Vex into the wall, his patterns flickering erratically. "This ends now," Nara said, her voice steady but fierce. But Vex wasn't done. He rose to his feet, his patterns surging back with renewed intensity. "You've improved," he admitted, his tone almost admiring. "But you're still no match for me." Suddenly, the air in the apartment grew heavy. The remaining drones began to hum, their processors syncing with Vex's quantum field. Leo's neural interface flashed with warnings as the system detected a massive energy buildup. "He's using the drones to amplify his power," Leo shouted. Nara's patterns shifted, adopting defensive geometries. "Leo, get to ya. Protect her." "I'm not leaving you," Leo snapped. Nara turned, her gaze locking with his. "Leo, please. I can handle him, but I need to know ya is safe." Leo hesitated, torn between his daughter and the woman standing in front of him. Finally, he nodded. "Don't do anything reckless." "Reckless is your department," Nara said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Leo sprinted toward the safe room, his neural interface guiding him through the apartment's compromised systems. As he reached the sealed door, Ya's voice called out from inside. "Daddy, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart," Leo said, placing his hand on the biometric scanner. The door slid open, and Ya threw herself into his arms. "They're still here, aren't they?" she asked, her blue skin shimmering faintly. "Yes," Leo said, his voice soft but firm. "But Nara's handling it. She's strong, ya? Like your mom?" Ya nodded, her small hand clutching his. "Then we should help her." Leo blinked, caught off guard by the determination in his daughter's voice. "Sweetheart, it's not safe. She needs us," Ya said, her gaze unwavering. "I can feel it." Before Leo could respond, a deafening crash echoed through the apartment. He turned to see Nara struggling against Vex, their quantum fields clashing violently. The drones hovered around them, amplifying Vex's power with each passing second. "Leo!" Nara shouted, her voice strained. "Get out of here!" But Leo didn't move. Instead, he looked down at Ya, who was staring at the chaotic scene with wide, unblinking eyes. "Ya," Leo said, kneeling in front of her. You told me once that you could feel the quantum fields, right? Like your mom did? Ya nodded. Yes. It's like gravity. But more? Then I need you to listen to me very carefully, Leo said, his voice steady. Can you focus on Nara's patterns? Can you help her? Ya hesitated, her small hands glowing faintly. I think so. But you have to help too, Daddy. Leo nodded. We'll do it together. As Nara battled Vex, she felt her energy waning. His power, amplified by the drones, was overwhelming, and she struggled to maintain her defenses. Then, suddenly, she felt it, a surge of energy, pure and strong, joining her quantum field. She glanced toward the safe room and saw Leo and Ya standing together, their hands clasped, their quantum patterns syncing with hers. "No," Leo called. "We're with you." The connection hit her like a wave, filling her with renewed strength. For the first time, she wasn't alone. "Let's end this," Nara said, her voice carrying the resonance of their shared energy. Together, they pushed back against Vex. The combined power of their quantum fields overwhelmed the drones, causing them to short-circuit and crash. Vex staggered, his patterns flickering wildly. "This isn't over," Vex growled, his voice strained. "It is for now," Nara said, sending one final wave of energy that knocked him unconscious. As the dust settled, Leo, Nara, and Ya stood together, their quantum fields harmonizing in perfect sync. "What now?" Leo asked, his voice filled with both exhaustion and relief. Nara turned to him, her expression softening. "Now, we prepare." This was just the beginning. Leo looked at Ya, who was smiling despite the chaos. "We'll be ready." As the three of them embraced, the faint glow of their quantum connection illuminated the room, a beacon of hope in the face of an uncertain future. The aftermath of the confrontation left Leo's apartment in shambles. The walls bore scorch marks from errant energy blasts, and the broken remains of drones littered the floor. Yet, despite the wreckage, the atmosphere felt lighter, like they had emerged from a storm. Nara knelt beside Vex's unconscious body, her patterns shifting into a calm, focused rhythm as she checked his vitals. "He'll recover," she said quietly. "But we need to secure him before he wakes up." Leo crossed his arms, his face grim. "Secure him where?" "Stellar Corp will come looking for him. And us." "This isn't over." Nara stood, brushing off her hands. "No, it's not. But we bought ourselves some time. And we've got something they don't." She nodded toward Ya, who was sitting on the couch, glowing softly as she played with a piece of broken drone. Leo followed Nara's gaze, his expression softening. "Ya, her connection to the quantum fields is unlike anything I've ever seen," Nara said. "And it's not just her. Kira saw this potential, too. That's why she built the failsafe." Leo rubbed the back of his neck, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "So what now? We've got Stellar Corp breathing down our necks, and we're fugitives with no resources." Nara smiled faintly. "We have resources." Kira left more than just the tablet. She left instructions, places to go, people to trust. She planned for this. Leo felt a lump rise in his throat. Of course she did. She always thought 10 steps ahead. You looked up from the couch, her blue eyes wide with curiosity. "Are we going on an adventure?" Leo smiled despite himself, crouching beside her. "Something like that, sweetheart. But it's going to be dangerous." Io puffed out her chest, her glowing skin shimmering with determination. "I'm not scared. I can help." Nara knelt beside them, her expression warm but serious. "She's right, Leo. She's already helped more than you realize. But we need to make sure she stays safe." Leo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Okay. Where do we start?" Nara straightened, her violet skin rippling with purpose. "There's an old Allari outpost just outside the city, abandoned after the withdrawal. It has quantum shielding and enough resources to lay low while we figure out our next move." "And Vex?" Leo asked, gesturing to her unconscious brother. "We'll take him with us," Nara said. He's too dangerous to leave behind, but I think he can be reasoned with. Somewhere under all that conditioning, he's still my brother." Leo didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "Let's move, then. The longer we stay here, the more we're putting you at risk." The old Allari outpost lay on the outskirts of Seattle, hidden within a dense forest. The structure, once a hub of human-Allari collaboration, had been abandoned years ago when the Allari retreated from Earth. Its crystalline spires were overgrown with vines, but the quantum shielding remained intact. As they stepped inside, the air hummed with dormant energy. Nara pressed her hand to a console, her patterns syncing with the system. Lights flickered to life, casting a soft glow over the alien architecture. "It's still functional," Nara said, relief evident in her voice. "We'll be safe here for now." Leo set Vex down on a makeshift cot, securing his wrists with quantum restraints Nara had pulled from her bag. "Let's hope he stays out long enough for us to figure out what's next." You wandered through the space, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's so pretty here," she said, her voice echoing softly. "Mommy would have liked it." Leo felt his chest tighten, but managed a smile. "Yes, she would have." Nara approached, her expression gentle. "She built places like this, didn't she? Spaces where humans and Allari could come together." "She believed in it," Leo said quietly. "In all of this, that we could build something better together. And we still can," Nara said, her voice firm. "But first, we need to stop Stellar Corporation." As the night deepened, Leo and Nara worked side by side, poring over the data Kira's tablet had begun to transmit. The files were dense, filled with schematics, encrypted communications, and evidence of Stellar Corp's plans for quantum consciousness manipulation. "This is huge," Leo said, leaning back in his chair. "If we can get this to the Coalition, it'll blow the lid off everything." Nara nodded, her patterns flickering thoughtfully. "But it won't be easy. There are factions within the Coalition that are complicit. They'll try to bury this." Leo glanced toward Ya, who had fallen asleep on a nearby couch, her skin glowing softly, in rhythm with her breathing. "What about her? If we do this, they'll come after her." "After us?" Nara reached out, her hand brushing against his. "We protect her. Together." That's what Kira wanted. Leo met her gaze, feeling a spark of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hope. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "Let's finish what Kira started." The outpost central console hummed softly as Leo and Nara worked late into the night, decrypting the files from Kira's tablet. The holographic display projected fragments of intercepted communications, schematics, and evidence of Stellar Corp's manipulation of quantum consciousness fields. "This isn't just about control," Nara said, her violet skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "They're reshaping entire species' thought processes. This could destabilize the entire Galactic Coalition." Leo leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "It's bigger than I thought. They're not just manipulating individuals, they're steering civilizations. Creating discord, pulling strings, keeping everyone at odds to maintain power." Nara nodded. "And they started with the Allari. Kira must have uncovered this during your gravitational harmonics project. That's why she was targeted." Leo clenched his fists. "They murdered her for this. And now they're coming after ya because they think she's inherited Kira's abilities." Nara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him. "That's why we're here. To make sure they don't succeed." As they continued working, the console emitted a soft chime. A new file decrypted, revealing a network of Stellar Corp's key operatives and facilities. One location caught Leo's eye, a research station deep in the Proxima system. "This station," Leo said, pointing at the display. "It's marked as a hub for their quantum consciousness experiments. If we can get there, we might find the original data they're using for these manipulations." Nara frowned. "It's heavily guarded. We'd need a plan to infiltrate, and even then, we'd be risking everything." Leo's jaw tightened. "If we don't, they'll keep coming. This is the only way to stop them." From behind them, A low groan interrupted their discussion. Vex stirred on the cot, his quantum restraints glowing faintly as they held him in place. His dark purple skin rippled with erratic patterns, his body visibly struggling to recover from the earlier confrontation. Nara moved to his side, her expression guarded but not unkind. Vex, his eyes fluttered open, and he blinked at her, his gaze sharp. "You should have killed me," he muttered, his voice laced with bitterness. "That's not who I am," Nara said, crossing her arms. "And deep down it's not who you are either." Vex laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. "You still believe that? After everything you've seen?" "I believe people can change," Nara said firmly. "Even you?" Vex's patterns flickered with uncertainty for a moment before his expression hardened. "If you think you can stop them, you're a fool. Stellar Corp's reach extends far beyond this planet. They'll find you. And when they do, they won't just kill you. They'll dismantle everything you care about." "Then help us," Leo interjected, stepping closer. "You know their tactics, their plans. You can give us an advantage." Vex glared at him. "Why would I betray them? They've given me power, purpose, and taken your freedom," Nara interrupted. "They've turned you into a tool, Vex. You're not their ally. You're their experiment." Vex's patterns faltered, the truth in her words hitting their mark. He turned away, his jaw clenched. "You don't have to answer now," Nara said softly. "But think about what you really want. Is it loyalty to them? Or redemption for yourself?" As dawn broke over the outpost, you stirred on the couch, rubbing her eyes and yawning. She wandered into the main chamber, her blue skin shimmering softly in the early light. "Daddy?" "Nara," she asked sleepily. "We're here, sweetheart," Leo said, smiling as he knelt to her level. "Did you sleep well?" You nodded, then looked at Vex, who was sitting silently on the cot. "Is he still mad?" Leo hesitated, but Nara crouched beside you, her tone gentle. "He's thinking, yeah. Sometimes people need time to decide what's right." You tilted her head, studying Vex with her wide, curious eyes. "I think he's sad," she said simply. "Like you were, Daddy, before Nara came?" Vex flinched, his patterns rippling with unease. "What do you know about sadness, little one?" he asked, his tone softer than before. You stepped closer, unafraid. "I know it feels heavy, like trying to hold gravity too tight. But it's easier when you let people help." Vex stared at her, his harsh exterior cracking. "You're different." "She's special," Nara said, placing a hand on Ya's shoulder. "And she's why we're doing this. To protect the future, for her and for everyone." Vex looked between Nara, Leo, and Ya, his expression conflicted. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I can't promise I'll agree with everything you're planning. But I'll help. For now." Leo exchanged a glance with Nara, relief evident in both their expressions. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a start. With Vex reluctantly on their side, the group began preparing for their next move. The Proxima Research Station loomed as their target, the heart of Stellar Corp's operations. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but Leo felt a spark of hope for the first time in years. As they packed supplies and reviewed plans, you sat cross-legged on the floor, practicing her quantum patterns under Nara's guidance. Leo watched them, a small smile tugging at his lips. "What?" Nara asked, catching his gaze. "Nothing," Leo said, shaking his head. "Just, it feels like we're starting to become a team." Nara's expression softened. "We are. And we'll need to be if we're going to survive what's coming." Leo nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then let's make sure we're ready." The group set their plans into motion as the Proxima Research Station loomed ahead, a massive, ominous structure suspended in orbit around Proxima Prime. The station bristled with security drones and external quantum stabilizers, a testament to Stellar Corp's paranoia and power. Leo stood in the cockpit of the stolen transport ship, its cloaking device humming quietly as it shielded them from the station's detection systems. He gripped the edge of the console, his jaw tight as he stared at the holographic schematics of the station. "You're sure this will work?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder at Nara. Nara, seated beside him, was focused on fine-tuning the cloaking frequencies. Her violet skin glimmered faintly in the low light. "The cloaking device will hold long enough to get us into the maintenance sector. Once we're inside, I can disrupt their internal sensors." Vex leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. His dark purple patterns flickered with tension. "Getting in isn't the hard part. It's getting out with the data and staying alive." You sat on the floor nearby, her small hands glowing as she manipulated a holographic training module. "We'll be okay," she said confidently. "We're a team." Vex raised an eyebrow, but a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Optimistic, isn't she?" "She gets it from her mom," Leo said, glancing at you with a soft smile. "And you," Nara added quietly, her eyes meeting Leo's for a moment before she turned back to the controls. As they approached the station, Nara initiated the landing protocol, slipping the ship into a docking bay reserved for maintenance vehicles. The interior of the station was cold and sterile, its smooth metal walls glowing faintly with embedded quantum circuits. Nara and Vex led the way, their movements fluid and precise as they avoided security checkpoints. You walked between Leo and Nara, her small frame hidden beneath a cloak designed to suppress her quantum signature. "We're heading for the central data core," Nara whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the station. "That's where they store the raw data from their experiments. If we can download it and transmit it to the Coalition, we can expose everything." Leo nodded, his pulse quickening as they moved deeper into the station. Every corner felt like a potential ambush, every sound a warning. They reached the data core, a massive chamber filled with towering quantum processors, their surfaces alive with shifting energy patterns. Nara quickly accessed the main console, her hands a blur as she navigated the system. "This will take a few minutes," she said, her voice tense. "Keep an eye out." Vex positioned himself near the entrance, his patterns shifting into combat readiness. "They'll notice the breach soon." Leo knelt beside you, who was watching Nara with wide, curious eyes. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked. You nodded. "It feels heavy in here, like everything's pulling in different directions." "That's the quantum fields," Nara said without looking up. "The station's processors are amplifying them for their experiments." "Yeah. Stay close to your dad." Suddenly, an alarm blared, the red lights casting an eerie glow across the chamber. Vex cursed under his breath. "We've got company." The door burst open, and a squad of Stellar Corp operatives poured in, weapons trained on the group. Leo instinctively stepped in front of you, his neural interface activating the portable shield he'd brought from the outpost. Nara glanced at him. "Can you hold them off?" "As long as I need to," Leo said, his voice steady despite the tension. Vex moved into action, his combat training evident as he deflected incoming fire with precision. Nara worked furiously at the console, her patterns flaring as she overrode the station's security protocols. "We're almost there," she said. "Just a little longer." You tugged on Leo's sleeve, her blue skin glowing faintly. "Daddy, I can help." Leo looked down at her, his heart pounding. "Not this time, sweetheart. Just stay behind me." "But I can feel the fields," you insisted. "I can make them shift." Leo hesitated, torn between his instinct to protect her and the realization that she might be their only chance. He glanced at Nara, who nodded. "Let her try," Nara said. "She's stronger than you think." You stepped forward, her small hands glowing brighter as she focused on the quantum fields around them. The air seemed to ripple as her energy joined the fray, disrupting the operatives' weapons and causing them to falter. One by one, the operatives were pushed back, their equipment short-circuiting under the strain of the shifting fields. Even Vex looked impressed as he held the line with newfound ease. "She's incredible," Vex muttered, shaking his head. Nara finally stepped back from the console, a small data drive in her hand. I've got it. Let's move. They fought their way back to the docking bay, narrowly avoiding reinforcements as the station's defenses activated. The ship's cloaking device flared to life as they launched into space, slipping past the station's sensors just as a fleet of drones scrambled in pursuit. Back on the outpost, the group gathered in the main chamber, the stolen data drive resting on the table between them. "This is it," Nara said, her voice filled with both relief and determination. "Everything we need to expose Stellar Corporation. Their experiments, their plans, everything." Leo placed a hand on Ya's shoulder, pride evident in his expression. "We couldn't have done it without you." Ya beamed, her blue skin shimmering softly. "I just did what Mommy would have done." Nara smiled, her gaze lingering on Ya for a moment before shifting to Leo. "The next step is transmitting this to the Coalition. It won't be easy, but it's our best chance." Vex leaned against the wall, his patterns calmer than Leo had ever seen them. "You'll have enemies on every side after this. But I'll stick around. You'll need someone to watch your back." Leo nodded. "We'll take all the help we can get." As the group prepared for the next phase of their mission, Leo felt a quiet sense of resolve settle over him. They were in uncharted territory, facing enemies more powerful than he could have imagined. But for the first time in years, he felt like they had a fighting chance. And as he looked at Nara and Ya, he realized they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for a future worth living for themselves, for Kira's memory, and for the galaxy as a whole. The stolen data drive sat in the center of the table like a ticking bomb. Its contents could topple Stellar Corp, but it also painted a target on their backs. The group gathered in the outpost's central chamber, the tension palpable. Nara spread a holographic map of Coalition space across the table. "Our next step is transmitting this data to the Coalition's independent judiciary network. It's one of the only entities Stellar Corp hasn't infiltrated yet." Leo leaned over the map, his brow furrowed. "Where's the nearest access point?" Nara zoomed in on a star system marked Kestrel Point. "Here. It's a relay hub in neutral space, monitored by the Coalition. It's heavily encrypted, which means Stellar Corp can't intercept transmissions sent through it. But it's public," Vex interjected from the corner, his dark patterns rippling with caution. "And crawling with spies. The second you start uploading, they'll know." Leo exhaled sharply. "So we'll have to work fast. Get in, upload the data, and get out before they can trace us." "That's the plan," Nara said. "But there's another complication. The data isn't just an upload. Kira encoded an interactive quantum key into the files. The Coalition will need someone to guide them through it in real time to verify its authenticity." Leo's stomach sank. "Which means one of us has to stay connected during the upload." Nara nodded. "And whoever does, it will be exposed for the duration. If Stellar Corp sends reinforcements, they'll be a sitting target," Vex finished grimly. Leo exchanged a glance with Nara, the weight of the decision heavy in the air. "I'll do it," he said finally. "This was Kira's fight. I need to finish it." Nara opened her mouth to argue, but you spoke first. "No, Daddy. Nara should do it." Everyone turned to the little girl, who stood with her arms crossed, her blue skin shimmering faintly. "She knows how to use the fields better than you. And you need to protect me." Leo crouched to her level, his expression soft. "Yeah, this isn't about." "It is," you said firmly. "Mommy would want us to do what makes the most sense. And Nara makes the most sense." Nara's gaze softened as she looked at the child, her violet skin flickering with emotion. "She's not wrong," Nara said, meeting Leo's eyes. "I'm the best choice for the job." Leo hesitated, his protective instincts warring with his rational side. Finally, he nodded. "All right. But we'll have an extraction plan ready. We're not leaving you behind." The journey to Kestrel Point was tense. The ship's cloaking device kept them hidden, but the proximity to Coalition traffic meant they had to stay on high alert. As they approached the relay hub, The station came into view, a massive structure with rotating rings glowing faintly from embedded quantum circuits. Nara sat in the cockpit, her fingers dancing over the controls. We'll dock at a private terminal. Vex, you'll monitor external activity. Leo, you'll stay with ya and watch for any signs of interference. And you? Leo asked, his voice laced with concern. I'll handle the upload, Nara said simply, her patterns flickering with determination. Inside the station, the group moved with purpose. Nara carried the data drive, her steps steady despite the mounting tension. Vex led the way, his sharp eyes scanning for threats, while Leo and Ya stayed close behind. The upload terminal was tucked away in a quiet corner of the station, shielded from prying eyes. Nara plugged the drive into the console, her neural interface syncing with the system. Starting the upload, she said, her voice calm but focused. Keep an eye out. This will take about 15 minutes. As the progress bar appeared on the holographic display, Leo paced nearby, his nerves on edge. Ya sat beside him, unusually quiet, her hands glowing faintly as she focused on the quantum fields around her. I feel something, Ya said suddenly, her voice soft but firm. Leo knelt beside her. What is it, sweetheart? Someone's coming, Ya said, her gaze distant. A lot of them, Vex cursed under his breath, his patterns shifting into combat readiness. She's right. We've got movement, 2 teams approaching from opposite sides. Nara didn't look up from the console. I'm locked in. I can't move until the upload is complete. Leo's heart pounded as he looked at Vex. Can you hold them off? Vex smirked grimly. I can try, but it'll be close. The first wave of Stellar Corp operatives arrived minutes later, their weapons drawn. Vex met them head-on, his combat training and quantum manipulation giving him an edge. Leo pulled you behind a makeshift barricade, firing a pulse emitter at the advancing agents. Nara remained at the console, her patterns glowing brighter as she synced deeper with the system. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her focus didn't waver. The upload's at 60%, she called out. Just a little longer. You peeked out from behind the barricade, her small hands glowing with energy. Daddy, can I help? Not yet, Leo said, his voice tight. Stay close to me. But as more operatives poured into the terminal, it became clear they were being overwhelmed. Vex staggered back, his patterns flickering erratically from exhaustion. We can't hold them much longer, Vex shouted. The upload hit 90%, and Nara gritted her teeth. Almost there. Suddenly, you stepped out from behind the barricade, her skin glowing brighter than ever before. Stop, she shouted, her voice echoing with a strange resonance. The advancing operatives froze, their weapons faltering as the quantum fields around them shifted violently. The air seemed to hum with power as you manipulated the fields, creating a barrier between the group and their attackers. Nara glanced over her shoulder, her eyes wide. What are you doing? Helping, you said simply, her expression calm despite the strain on her small frame. The upload completed with a soft chime, and Nara pulled the drive from the console. It's done? Let's move. Leo scooped you into his arms, her glowing skin warm against his. You did amazing, sweetheart. I'm tired, you murmured, resting her head on his shoulder. We'll get you out of here, Leo said, his voice gentle but firm. Vex covered their retreat, his patterns shifting into aggressive geometries as he held off the remaining operatives. The group sprinted back to their ship, the sound of alarms echoing through the station. Once aboard, the ship's cloaking device activated, and they slipped away from Kestrel Point, leaving their pursuers behind. As the group settled into the cockpit, Nara turned to Leo, her expression a mix of exhaustion and relief. The data's transmitted. It's out there now. Stellar Corp can't stop it. Leo nodded, holding you close. But they'll come after us with everything they've got. We'll be ready, Nara said, her patterns flickering with determination. We've made it this far. We're not stopping now." Vex leaned back in his seat, his patterns calmer than they'd been in years. "You've got my help. For what it's worth." Leo looked at Nara, then at Ya, who was fast asleep in his arms. "For Kira. For all of us." Nara nodded, her hand brushing against his. Together, the ship soared into the void, leaving the station, and the danger, for now. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, they had the upper hand. The stolen ship drifted in the relative safety of uncharted space, its cloaking device masking their presence from Stellar Corp's relentless pursuit. Inside, the air was heavy with exhaustion and anticipation. The data had been transmitted to the Coalition judiciary, but the fight was far from over. You slept soundly on one of the ship's bunks, her skin glowing faintly, a residual effect of her incredible quantum manipulation at the station. Leo sat beside her, his hand resting protectively on her small frame. Across the room, Nara and Vex stood near a console, quietly debriefing. Nara's patterns shifted as she spoke, her voice low, but urgent. "The Coalition judiciary will review the data, but Stellar Corp isn't going to wait for the verdict. They'll mobilize every resource to discredit us and bury this." Vex crossed his arms, his dark purple skin flickering with tension. "And they'll be coming after you specifically. That kid," he gestured toward you. "She's not just a liability. She's their obsession now." Nara nodded grimly. "We've exposed them, but that makes us targets. We need to stay ahead of them." Leo joined them, his face drawn but resolute. "So what's the next move? We can't just sit here waiting for them to catch up." Nara pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy, highlighting key systems. "We need allies. There are factions within the Coalition, scientists, diplomats, even some All-Ari leaders, who oppose Stellar Corp's influence. If we can rally them, we'll have a chance to protect ya and dismantle the corporation's network." Vex raised an eyebrow. "And you think they'll just line up to help us?" "Most of them are either too scared or too compromised. They might not help us directly," Nara admitted. "But they can give us resources, information, safe havens. Anything that keeps us one step ahead." Leo glanced at the map, his jaw tightening. "Where do we start?" Nara highlighted a system on the edge of Coalition space. Vadis Station. It's a neutral zone, a hub for independent researchers and exiled Coalition leaders. "There's someone there who can help us." "Who?" Leo asked. "A former All-Ari diplomat named Ashara," Nara said. "She was one of the first to speak out against Stellar Corp's experiments. She's been in hiding for years, but she has connections that could be invaluable." The journey to Vadis Station took several days. The group took turns monitoring the ship systems, ensuring their cloaking device remained functional. Leo spent most of his time with Ya, helping her recover from the strain of her quantum abilities. "Daddy," you said one evening as they sat in the ship's small living quarters, "am I like Mommy?" Leo smiled softly, brushing a strand of her glowing blue hair from her face. "You're like her in the best ways, sweetheart. Smart, brave, and kind." Ya tilted her head. "But I'm different too, right? Because of what I can do." "You're unique," Leo said. "What you can do is special. It's a gift. And it's okay to be different." Ya nodded thoughtfully, her small hand glowing faintly as she reached for his. "I'll keep us safe, Daddy." "Like Mommy would." Leo's chest tightened, and he pulled her into a hug. "You don't have to do it all, Ya. That's why we're a team. We take care of each other." When the ship finally arrived at Vadis Station, the sight of the massive orbital structure was both awe-inspiring and foreboding. Its sleek design was a mix of coalition and independent architecture, a testament to the diverse groups that called it home. As the ship docked, Nara turned to the group. "Stay alert. Vadis is neutral, but it's also a hotbed of spies and mercenaries. We don't know who might be watching." Vex smirked. "Sounds like my kind of place." They disembarked cautiously, Nara leading the way through the bustling corridors of the station. The air was filled with the hum of overlapping languages, the chatter of traders, researchers, and refugees. Holographic signs flickered above market stalls, advertising everything from alien artifacts to experimental technology. Nara guided them to a small, unassuming tavern tucked away in a quieter part of the station. Inside, the dim lighting and hushed conversations created an atmosphere of secrecy. Ashara sat at a corner table, her blue Allari skin marked with faint scars, her sharp eyes scanning the room. She looked up as Nara approached, her expression a mix of surprise and suspicion. "Nara," Ashara said, her voice low. "You've been off the grid for years. What are you doing here?" Nara gestured for the others to join her at the table. "We need your help. It's about Stellar Corp and Kira." Ashara's eyes narrowed at the mention of Kira's name. "What about her?" Leo stepped forward, his voice steady. "We have proof of what they've been doing. Experiments on quantum consciousness. Manipulating entire species. Kira uncovered it, and they killed her for it." Ashara leaned back, her expression unreadable. "If you've exposed them, why come to me? What do you expect me to do?" "Stellar Corp will try to bury this," Nara said. "We need allies, people who can push the coalition to act before it's too late." Ashara studied them for a long moment, her gaze lingering on Anya, who peeked out from behind Leo's leg. "That's her daughter, isn't it?" she said softly. "Yes," Leo said. "And they're after her, too. We need to protect her." Ashara sighed, her sharp features softening. "Kira was one of the bravest people I've ever known. If she trusted you, I'll help. But it won't be easy. Stellar Corp has spies everywhere, even here. Just tell us what we need to do," Nara said, her voice firm. Ashara nodded, leaning closer. "There's an Allari enclave on the far side of the station. They have resources and information that could help. But they don't trust outsiders. You'll need to convince them." Leo exchanged a glance with Nara, determination etched on his face. "Then we convince them, whatever it takes."